Welcome to the Breaking News Bears podcast. I'm your host, Chris Capone, joined alongside my co-host, once again, Evan Davis. And heading into the final weeks of the regular season, the Milwaukee Brewers are looking like a surprise contender for the World Series. Their hot play of recently has led to many different fans and outlets taking notice, especially the rise of Jackson Chourio as of late. We'll be discussing the New York Yankees, whose bullpen struggles have continued recently, including Clay Holmes giving up a walk-off grand slam to Rangers rookie Wyatt Langford. Lastly, we'll talk about our top five World Series contenders and the MVP race between Shohei Ohtani and Francisco Lindor. But first, Evan, I'll ask you, how much do you believe in the Milwaukee Brewers heading into October?
I believe in them a lot. I just think that this is a really scary team, and Pat Murphy has done an incredible job of coaching them. I mean, coming into the season, I certainly thought the Milwaukee Brewers were going to be last place in the division, or not last place, but definitely within that four range, 3-4 range outside the playoffs. And now a 9-game lead at this very moment, 81-59 record, challenging the Phillies and the Dodgers for the best record in the National League. This definitely wasn't on anyone's radar, but you just look at this lineup and it's stacked. You have Willy Adames, who's nearing a 30 home run, 100 RBI season. William Contreras has 20 home runs and 80 RBIs. Rhys Hoskins, we know what he's like in October. Bryce Terang can steal a bag. You have Joey Ortiz, Jackson Chourio at the bottom of the lineup, as well as Sal Frelick. This is a young and exciting team, and you wonder what the future holds for them. Obviously they traded Corbin Burns last offseason. Do they retain Willy Adames? I still have some question marks about the rotation, but you give me one game of Freddie Peralta, and Tobias Myers has been really solid for them. Frankie Montas and Aaron Savali, it's a toss-up in my opinion as to who gets that third game. I would probably lean towards Montas, but I just think with the way that this team is built and their bullpen depth as well, with McGill, Pyumps, now Devin Williams is back. You have the lefty in Hobie Milner. I mean, this is a scary team.
Yeah, and I talked about it earlier in the year. The Brewers just seem to be like the Tampa Bay Rays of the NL, where it's just like you can take away players from them. They'll cut costs on, like, they didn't want to pay Corbin Burns a big extension because they're a small market team, and ending up trading him away, and they just keep on rolling. It's like this never-ending like cycle of the Brewers just constantly, and it does help being in the NL Central, where it's the weakest division in the NL, where,
Hmm.
the Pirates, the Cardinals, the Cubs, you don't really know how good they're going to be coming into the year, but the Brewers always just seem to find a way just to play consistency, win the games that they need to win against
Hmm.
teams below 500, especially those in their own division, and they just seem to keep on marching. And every year, it just seems to be like they'll always win the division. It's just due to good play, and this is also without Christian Yelich, by the way,
Yeah, I
going down with
forgot about that.
season-ending back injury, and it's really been something to see that, you know, Yelich going down. Like I thought there was going to be a kind of a lull in the offense. Like he was a big part of them in only 73 games, 11 home runs, 42 RBIs, 21 stolen bases, hitting 315 with a 909 OPS. He was their best hitter, and he's just not there anymore due to his injury. But the offense has still just been good, and it's been in part due to Jackson Trio as of late,
Hmm.
really taking the mantle and saying, you know what, I just got to start hitting for power. And he's been hitting for power, hitting for average, two triples recently. It's just been really, really nice to see that the Brewers just keep on rolling.
Yeah, and it's just given it's crazy how deep like the National League is in terms of rookies because it's all about like Paul Skeens and Jackson Merrill, but we're kind of forgetting about Jackson Chourio here, who has 19 home runs and 69 RBIs and his batting close to 280 with an 800 OPS. And you look at him over his last 30 games, batting 328 with a
Yeah.
607 slug. Last 7 games, the slugging percentage at 893. I mean, we are just blessed to have so many rookies that are just tearing the cover off of baseballs in Merrill and Chourio, and then also buy you 100 with Paul Skeens. So you just, you wonder, given how young this team is, how will they perform in the postseason? But I think they're kind of like the Diamondbacks of last year. And they obviously lost to the Diamondbacks in the postseason last year. But they're all these guys on the Brewers are like 25, 26, 27, 28 years old. And for Jackson Chourio, he's 20 years old. You have nothing to lose at this point, and that's what makes them scary.
Yeah, giving Jackson Chourio that big contract heading into the season, a lot of people had question marks about it. And coming into the year when he started to struggle, it was like, well, no, duh. He had never played a game in AAA. Of course, he's gonna start struggle to start the year. He's 20
Mhm.
years old. But recently, it just seems like he's found that switch and he's flicked it up, and now he's taken the world by storm recently. And as you said, everybody's been talking about Jackson Merrill and Paul Skeens, and all credit due to them. They've been dominant for the whole year, it seems like.
Mhm.
But Jackson True, as of late, is really starting to sneak his name up. I don't think he'll end up winning the Rookie of the Year award, but his team's going to be a valuable contender in the postseason. While I'm not too sure about uh, the Padres, while they recently got Tatis back, but I don't know if they'll be uh, just being in the wild card series. I don't know if they'll be as big as the Brewers will be. But as you said, yes, this Brewers lineup is young. You know, they signed Gary Sanchez in the offseason, and he's really been playing as like their DH role recently.
Mhm.
Just because William Contreras has been amazing the whole year. And what a trade for them, or what a deal getting him. Um, and Reese Hoskins, another player where he had missed all of the previous year due to a torn ACL, and they really got him for cheap. And now, this year, 23 home runs, 70 RBIs. He's not really hitting for high average, but he's hitting for power. It's been, it's really been Bryce Terang, Jackson Chourio, Jory Ortiz, the younger players in their lineup, Sal Frelick, Blake Perkins. A lot of them have been really balling out recently.
Yeah, and you look at a guy like Sal Frelick, who we saw, his MLB debut week, if you want to call it, was pretty impressive. And you look at his defense, like the offense isn't really there. He's more in the outfield, just strictly on his defense, but he doesn't strike out a ton, but he also doesn't walk a ton. But his outs above expected is where you would really, really want it to be. And that's just what makes this team so scary, is just like you don't know which one of these guys can go off. And Sal Frelick is a speedster on the base path, so you can even implement him into that like pinch runner role come postseason time. But he's just a guy that once he gets on base, it's scary.
Yeah, it's really been, the whole year. They've just been a solid, well-oiled machine, it seems like. They just keep on chugging along.
Hmm.
And they have like we said with their pitching staff, they recent or not recently, but Devin Williams came back from the IL after starting the year in the 60-day IL. And
Hmm.
he really hasn't lost a beat. I remember that one save he had against the Dodgers where he struck out Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman, and it was just like
Hmm.
that's insane. He'd only been a couple games off of the IL by then, and he had just been just locked in from the start. And their bullpen has been really good recently, where, you talked about Joel Pyams, and obviously Devin Williams, but it's just they have a good collection of guys in their bullpen where they can take bulk up innings, or they can do spot starts. Like DL Hall, he's been up and down in the from the minors, and he's been the guy that they can put in there for bulk innings in the postseason, just as a left-handed reliever. Um, but this entire Brewers lineup, just from top to bottom, has just been consistent the whole year.
Hmm. It has been. And Devin Williams, you look at it, 24 strikeouts and 13 and two-thirds innings pitched. ERA at 1.98, which is around his career average in the regular season at 1.9. I mean, Devin Williams is like a little tier below Emmanuel Clase.
Yeah, and Class A has been electric the whole year, but and something we'll never see. Like I don't think we'll ever like Class A is incredible right now. But
Hmm.
Devin Williams is one of those guys as well, where it's like they traded Josh Hader because they didn't want to have to end up paying him later down the
Hmm.
line. And they had Devin Williams just waiting in the wings. He was their setup man for such a long time. And it's just incredible. It's crazy to see that, like, his strikeout numbers per nine are insane, Devin Williams.
Hmm.
And they just had him as a setup man for Josh Hader.
Yeah.
Like, the Brewers do such a good job at finding these guys in their bullpen that, similar to the Rays, where, they'll just come out of nowhere and, oh, uh I get 15.8 strikeouts per nine. Like, it's just insane.
Hmm.
Um Moving on, we could talk about the Astros, another team that's really, coming into the year, they started off really slow, and people thought, is this the end of the Astros dynasty? Nope. Well, it's heading into September, and they're top of the division again, and they're probably going to end up having another uh, ALCS appearance. but they currently have a 4.5 game lead over the Mariners. And one of the additions from the trade deadline that had been viewed as a slight overpay or maybe a major overpay, depending on how you're looking at it, the Yusei Kikuchi trade, he has been incredible for them in their six starts with him. 2.5 year or 2.57 ERA with 47 strikeouts to only 10 walks and 35 innings pitched. I already knew that Kikuchi was a good pitcher just going from the last previous year, but this addition to this team, it's just another, especially with the recent struggles of Justin Verlander, coming back from injury. Having Kikuchi has been such a great addition for these Astros.
Yeah, and also being in the AL West has been a good addition for the Houston Astros. Probably the worst division in baseball. I mean, yes, the Astros, they're hot right now. They've been one of the best teams in baseball, but it's just this is a horrible
Yeah.
division. The Mariners offensively are terrible. The Texas Rangers have been one of the most disappointing teams. They're going to have the fewest wins for a reigning World Series. I don't know how the Rangers won the World Series. I really don't know how they did it. And then you top it off with the Athletics and the Angels, but it's all just about getting to October and with this Houston Astros team. And I've been kind of going back and forth. Like, do I view them as like a threat to, a team like the Orioles and to a lesser extent, a team like the Yankees or even the Guardians, to a degree. But it for me, it all predicates on if Kyle Tucker is healthy come October because Ben Gamel cannot be your everyday left fielder in October. That's just not going to work. Yes, you have Mauricio Dubon, who was there last year or 2 years ago as well when the team won the World Series, but Jordan Alvarez is a horrible defender. He needs to be your everyday DH. Am I trusting Jason Hayward? I mean, he was DFA'd by the Dodgers for a reason. He's not a really great offensive bat. I think he's batting around 200 with the Houston Astros. It's just, I don't know what to make of them. Their starting rotation is really good, obviously, with Kikuchi, Hunter Brown, Framber Valdez, Spencer Arrighetti. To a certain extent, he's kind of been mid this year, flirted with a no-hitter, but outside of that, he's been pretty mid. Um, and their bullpen is just kind of interesting. Like you have Hader, you have Presley, but outside of that, like Brian Abreu, yeah, he's great, but he also has his moments. We saw in that game against the Houston Astros when he gave up the game against the Orioles when he gave up the grand slam to Santander. Hector Neris is back. Caleb Ferguson, as a Dodger fan, he's just a ticking time bomb. I don't know with this team, but their offense is pretty solid. Yainer Diaz is quietly having 16 home runs with a 772 OPS, but it's all about Kyle Tucker being healthy. And if he's not healthy, I don't think the Astros make it out of the division series.
Yeah, and one thing you also talk about is like their starting rotation. Losing Christian Javier is such a huge loss for them being
Hmm.
out for the year. It's really bigger than when most people are thinking. People look at Hunter Brown and Ronel Blanco right now, but they don't really have that much postseason experience. I don't know if I can trust Hunter Brown going into a a game two start for the Houston Astros, which he would
Hmm.
likely be their game two starter as of right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can trust him going into a game two start. And Justin Verlander, he's struggled recently coming back from the IL. Do we trust Justin Verlander? I mean, sounds like a stupid question, but do we trust Justin Verlander at age 41 right now? And he hasn't really looked good the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, like it's crazy for us to say that, but it's like Father Time is coming. And yeah, he's 41 years old. And his last start against the Cincinnati Reds, that first inning was not very good
He
whatsoever.
he walked the first three batters to start the game.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just look, I don't know, but it's Verlander in the postseason, and we know in the postseason, I mean, the year that I'm sorry, in the 2023 year. 2.95 ERA, a 1.2 whip. Like he wasn't really great the year that they won the World Series, but he still found a way to go 2-0 in his four starts, but he had a 5.85 ERA. I I don't know with him. Like it's going to be interesting. Like I was thinking about it, like who would you start game one? Most likely it's gonna be Yusei Kikuchi. Then do you
I think Framber Valdez gets the start.
Okay, so then if you do Valdez, Kikuchi, or
Hunter
maybe you go
Brown.
left, right, left, and then you do Valdez, Brown, Kikuchi, just so you can kind of, stack it. But yeah, I don't know. It's just crazy to not have Verlander on this roster. But you look at, his last six starts or five starts, pardon me, in I'm sorry, in four of his last five starts, he's given up four or more runs. And
Yeah.
that you can't have that. And it's not like he was facing really solid offenses. In three of his last five, it's the Cardinals, the Angels, and the Reds. Like, it's just you can't have that. And his strikeout to walk ratio, just I don't know what they do if they use him as like I don't know what they do. I really don't. If you go to the NLDS, if is he your game four starter? Like yes, no, maybe so. I don't know.
It's a conversation for Joe Espada to have where, you know, they probably the Astros aren't likely to get a bye right now just because
Hmm.
the Guardians, the AL Central winners already at 80 wins, and then the Orioles and Yankees keep fighting for that first spot in the AL East where they're around
Yeah.
80, 81 wins. So the
Hmm.
Astros are likely going to have to play in the wild card series.
Hmm.
Um, where depending on who they face, could be the Twins, Royals, could be anybody.
Yeah.
Um,
It would
it-
most likely be one of the Twins or Royals.
yeah. Um, where you're probably gonna have to start Valdez and let's say Hunter Brown first two games. He might be your game two starter in the NLDS if you get there.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's like
like
I,
do I trust 41-year-old Justin Verlander, who's had like a 7 ERA his last five starts, in a game against, let's say that it would be like the Yankees, or which side of the bracket would they be on?
no, so it would as of right now, the Orioles and the Guardians have a bye. The Yankees would play the Yankees would play the number two seed in the wild card, which would either be one of the Twins or Royals, and then, or if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. I don't remember exactly how the bracket works, but nonetheless, they're going to be facing one of the Yankees, Twins, or Royals in the postseason. It is. So the Yankees would play either the Twins or the Royals, and then the Astros get the
The
worst of
winner
the
of that.
three. No, they
Okay.
get the worst
The
of
worst.
whoever's the number three seed in the wild card is who the Astros would face. So they're either getting the Twins or the Royals.
Yeah. Okay. And then if they were to make the NLDS,
They would probably then get the winner. They would get I think it would work as if they would then get the winner of the wild card series between the Yankees and
and the
the
other team.
Twins and Royals.
Yeah, okay. So I don't know if I would
I
trust
think. I don't know, but regardless, they would be on the road.
still, I don't think I would trust the winner of, or I don't know if I would trust Verlander against, let's say it's the Yankees right now. I don't know if I
Hmm.
would trust Verlander against the Yankees in a game two start on the road
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
currently.
So right now it's shaped up that if the Astros made the NL, if they made the ALDS, they would play the Guardians.
Okay.
It- That's how it worked. And then the Orioles would play the winner of the Yankees Twins Royals series.
Okay. Yeah. I still don't know if I would trust Verlander right now. Just
Yeah.
just because of how how he's been recently in his last five starts. And obviously only three of them have come off since he's been back from the IL, but still he missed 2 months of the year on the
Hmm.
IL. I don't
Yeah.
know.
And it's just a road start in the postseason. Like that just feels like a recipe for disaster. And who knows? The Guardians have been really streaky as of late. The Astros have been hot. So they're 5 games back of the Guardians for the number two seed. Like there's still a chance. Obviously, it's September 6th, but not a ton of baseball left. But if the Astros continue this hot streak, they've lost their last three. But if they get back into the groove of things, maybe they do get the two seed.
Yeah. Um, it's just been one of those things where Kyle Tucker is said to be coming back, and hopefully when he comes back, this little end of the season, this like middle of September to end of September like stretch is enough for him to get his legs back, get his swing back. Because, like you said, if Kyle Tucker's healthy, I think the Astros have a genuine shot to end up
Hmm.
going back to the World Series. If he's playing like he did to start the year, where 19 home runs in 40 games, 40 RBIs in 60 games. It's been insane. If he can stay healthy
Hmm.
throughout the postseason, I think the Astros have a genuine shot to end up going back to the World Series.
Yeah, me too. I think we're both speaking the same language.
Um, Moving on, what we can talk about is the NL MVP race. And I don't know if it's really as much of a race, but Shohei Ohtani and Francisco Lindor, uh, it's been those two are going to be the top two contenders for MVP in the NL, for sure. And I'm 99.9% sure that Ohtani is going to end up winning it. But it seems like uh, Ohtani, while on his way to the World Series, or on his way to his MVP, he's chasing 50-50.
Hmm.
And it seems like it's a matter of time where he's going to end up getting it. What do you think about, this MVP push from Francisco Lindor, where, Jeff Passan has been tweeting about it, and there had been quotes put out about Lindor wanting the MVP. I don't really think there's much of a race.
I could definitely see the argument for Francisco Lindor, but in my opinion, I think it's based on if the Mets make the playoffs or not. Like right now, they're tied for the 3 seed with the Braves, and obviously the Mets wouldn't be in this position without the play of Francisco Lindor. They've won their last 7 games, and Lindor has really been clutch at the plate, batting 274 with the 30 home runs, 84 RBIs, and he's one of the best defenders in the MLB in the 99th percentile at 16 outs above average. I just, it's so hard for me to decide because, like, Ohtani, 44 home runs, 46 stolen bases. The time is ticking for him to get those 6 home runs. He's got to start hitting some more eventually. Um, I think for me, it's based off if the Mets make the postseason. And yes, Ohtani won MVP when the Angels were anemic, but it was as a pitcher and as a player. If the Mets make the postseason, Lindor, I think, would have a serious, serious case for NL MVP.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. Like, the Mets play recently in the whole season, like their turnaround ever since June started with Grimace and everything. It's really been it's really been Francisco Lindor carrying this team.
Hmm.
And um there were some tweets at the beginning of the year where it was like, oh, I'd rather have Cleveland Lindor because of his offense. But if you look at the numbers, Francisco Lindor in New York has been a better offensive player than he was in
Yeah.
Cleveland. A 122 OPS plus compared to a 118 OPS plus in Cleveland. But it's just been, Francisco Lindor. I don't know if the Mets end up making the postseason, even if it is as just the third wild card team, which it seems like that's their only shot right now, is the third
Yeah.
wild card team. I don't know if that's enough because if Ohtani hits 50-50, it's a guarantee. I don't think there's any way possible. But I even think Ohtani just has such a lead right now just because, yes, they're tied for the top team in the NL right now with the Phillies, but I just think Ohtani's been doing it the whole year where everybody, I don't know, I didn't think Ohtani was going to be, I knew Ohtani was great, but I didn't think we'd be reaching 50-50 levels like close to the end of the year by now. I thought there would be a slight fall off. I was thinking maybe around just 40 home runs. I was thinking 40-40 was definitely in the cards, but 50-50, the fact that we're even talking about it is still just insane coming off Tommy John surgery. It's been, and granted, he's a full-time DH, but still, it's just been insane to see.
Yeah, but that's like like my thing is like I think the argument is like if Otani doesn't get 50-50, then Lindor has a really, really good chance of winning NL MVP if the Mets make the playoffs. But I think as soon as that 50th home run and 50th stolen base, like that bag is stolen, like it's case closed, like it's Otani's. Because if you're telling me, kind of like how if when Aaron Judge hit 62 homers last year, like if he didn't win MVP, then like what qualifies as the MVP? And for Ohtani to be the first player in MLB history, well, he's already the first player with 44, 46. To be the first player to hit 50 home runs and 50 stolen bases. And yes, we talk about Acuna Jr. He hit 41 home runs and he didn't hit his 40th until like the last couple of weeks of the season. Like it's not like Ohtani hit 40 before September and he's now
Yeah.
about to hit 50.
Yeah. It's been it's been the whole year pretty much, it's Otani's just been great, just doing what he normally does. And I thought there would be a slight fall off coming into the year, but he's been taking the front seat and driving the Dodgers
Hmm.
into higher expectations.
One last thing before we move on. It's my only thing as well is that when Betts went down with that broken hand and Ohtani moved into the leadoff spot, it's just like, where would that Dodgers team be without Ohtani in the leadoff spot? And now he hasn't left the leadoff spot. I just think it really helped his case when Betts went down because the Dodgers, although they were only playing like semi above 500 baseball, Betts was out for like 44 games and they went like 24 and 20 in
Yeah,
those games. Like they still at least maintained a pace.
they tread water, and that's something that happens. He's done a really good job at propelling the Dodgers, even when, one of your top three guys goes down. He's been
Hmm.
good to keep your team floating above water, basically,
Hmm.
and
Yeah, like
keep chugging
Freeman went
along.
down with injury, or no, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, not injury. Oh yeah, injury. Yeah,
And Freeman also missed time
yeah,
with his son.
yeah. Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I didn't think, because even last year, Otani had only stolen 20 bases, and obviously with
Hmm.
the bigger bags, I I, I just didn't expect that we'd be in the running for 50-50 right now.
Crazy, crazy times.
Moving on, we can talk about, quick note, I just want to get off. The White Sox might be the worst team in MLB history. Like, granted, you know, they've had just an insanely terrible start to their uh not start. They've had an insanely terrible season. This is one of the worst teams in MLB history. Like, they could realistically end the season with I think the most losses in an MLB season for a full 162, I think, is 119 by the Detroit Tigers.
Jesus.
Um, it's
Yeah, it's yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right.
119. They could easily pass that right
Hmm.
now.
Yeah.
They're it's such a bad team.
God, and boy, do I feel bad for Miguel Vargas. I mean, talk about going from the best team in baseball to the worst team in
Yeah.
baseball. But Andrew Freeman, I love you for getting Michael Kopech and Tommy Edman. Kudos to you, man. For Miguel Vargas, who has just, I mean, I've never seen so many memes created within a matter of a month with Miguel Vargas, who just looks like he's ready to just be done with baseball, like go find a new career path. And you look at his numbers, 26 games played, a 122 batting average, a 240 on base, a 195 slug, 435 OPS. When he was with the Dodgers in 30
He was an above
games,
average bat.
yeah, he was batting 240 with a 313 on base and a 735 OPS. And then he goes to the White Sox and his OPS is 300 points lower. But you look at this team and then oh my God, like who could forget the mishap that they had in the Baltimore Orioles game, which I feel bad for Miguel Vargas because Andrew Benintendi had no reason to go for that baseball. And now Miguel Vargas is hurt. But then that brings home all 3 runs. I didn't realize this until I just checked a second ago. The White Sox run differential is minus 303.
Yeah. It's
Minus 303. Like, I think Rob Manfred, like everyone hates the commissioner of any league. If you like don't want to be hated, you need to go to Chicago, knock on Jerry Reinsdorf's door, and tell him you're done. Like, this is embarrassing
yeah.
how horrible he is. And I know I've been going on a rant, but I just remembered this one other thing that you might enjoy. I was watching Christopher Mad Dog Russo, and he was talking about how overrated Reinsdorf is, that if it wasn't for the GM that drafted Michael Jordan, Reinsdorf wouldn't be the person like the owner that he is today in terms of money and luxury because you look at the teams that he owns. The Bulls have been terrible since Jordan left. Obviously, Derrick Rose injury kind of killed what it could have been. But then you look at these White Sox who, like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, won the division.
Yeah. They had it's such an insane fall off where they had won the division 93 and 69, and then it's just been this slow, or not even slow, it's been like only 3 years since then, and it's been just falling off a cliff. And Pedro Grifol gets all the blame for it, but I don't know if anyone could have really do anything with this roster, especially you like e- especially after all the deals they made at the
Mhm.
trade deadline too. They traded Eloy Jimenez and Paul DeJong, who were their best players. Um, it's just such an incredibly bad team. And Garrett Crochet, kudos to you, man. I don't know how you're doing it still. I mean, he's still waiting for his contract extension, but Jerry Reinsdorf is cheap. The biggest extent or the biggest contract they've ever handed out was to Andrew Benintendi. He's net Jerry Reinsdorf has never given a contract higher than 75 million dollars. They've
And
never paid somebody $100 million for a contract. And that's insane. Where
yeah,
he's one of the cheapest owners. He needs to be taken out
yeah.
of
Like
of ownership.
I don't know if I'm making it up, but like, don't they have like owner meetings to like decide still like to kind of like vote? But I guess that's only with new owners. But when you brought up Crochet, like, what are they doing? Like, I don't get it because now like you're not even gonna get value for him when you if you trade him in the winter. You look at the month of August and September and even July, like because it was the buildup for him potentially getting traded. He hasn't thrown more than 4 innings since June 30th when he
Yeah.
threw 7 innings against the Colorado Rockies. Like he hasn't like he threw 4, 2, 4, 3, 4, 2 and a third, 4, 4, 3 and a third. Like, what are you doing with him? Like, I don't get like obviously, you're monitoring his innings because he is well over. He's only thrown 54 and a third innings as his career high in 2021, coming off an injury. I just like I don't know his value anymore. Like, what is Garrett Crochet's value?
Yeah, and it's one of the things that's really screwed them where now his value is going to be plummeting, where people were looking at trades for him and
Hmm.
really thinking of giving up top prospects just to get Garrett Crochet just because he's a lefty and strikes out a ton of batters. But
Hmm.
now, and he's only 25 years old, not a and it's just now what do you do with him? Where you're probably going to have to trade him in the offseason because he wants that extension, and I don't think Reinsdorf is going to give him an extension.
I
It's
just I don't even know the value because now the White Sox lost all the leverage.
Yeah, and it's such a White Sox things to do at this point where you just you fumble any move that you really had like lined up.
Yeah.
You probably had moves lined up at the deadline where people were willing to give some of their top five prospects for Gary Crochet just for a postseason push. And now teams are going to be looking at it, well, he didn't really pitch more than 4 innings since June. Like, I don't know.
It's just you look at who's come and gone through that organization and Rodon, Cease, Kopech, possibly now Crochet. You had oh my God, what's his name? Jose Abreu. You know, know what's happened with that.
Yeah.
But you look at what's come and gone with this organization, and it's just like get new ownership. Like the f- I don't know if you saw this on Twitter, and we could wrap this up, but there were 76 people at the White Sox game last week.
Yeah.
Like
It,
you can't fund that.
there's not enough money in the world that it can bribe a Chicago native to go to a White Sox game at this point.
Yeah.
They even White Sox fans would probably rather go see Cubs games, and there's
And
a
it's not like the
whole
Cubs are
it's
even that much big. Like
I know, but they have double the amount of wins it seems like where
Mhm.
like more than double the amount of wins, but still like
Just crazy.
an incredibly sad team.
Yeah. Pathetic.
Quickly moving on, we're just gonna quickly talk, each of our top five World Series contenders. We talked about last week, who we thought could win the World Series, but I just want to get your thoughts on like who are your top to bottom, like most likely to make the World Series right now?
All right, so I'm just gonna do I go? I've been like debating. I was debating whether or not I go, in order or not. But you know what? For this hell of it, why don't we go in order? All right, I'm gonna start at number five. I think the Cleveland Guardians at number five on my list. I'm gonna go with the Houston Astros. I'm gonna put them at four on my list. I'm gonna put the Baltimore Orioles at three. I'm gonna be biased because it's my list. I'm gonna put the Philadelphia Phillies at two. Oh, you know what? Sorry. Forget the four. Who was my four? The Houston Astros. I meant
Astros.
forget the four Houston Astros. I'm gonna switch that up real quick. The San Diego Padres at four, the Baltimore Orioles at three, the Philadelphia Phillies at two, and my Dodgers at one.
All right, good list, good list. I can see the bias with the
No
Dodgers, but
bias.
I think my number five team is the San Diego Padres. Just because, getting healthy, getting Tatis back, and the bullpen and rotation, getting you Darvish back.
Yeah.
Obviously, he didn't have a great start on Wednesday, but getting another big arm back in the starting lineup is their starting rotation is really good. So number five, the Padres. Number four, I have the Cleveland Guardians. Number three, I have the Orioles. Number two, I have the Phillies, and number one, I have the Dodgers.
So
Yeah.
there's so yeah, so I guess we both agree, but interesting enough that we both didn't have the Yankees. No Yankees
Well, we
in
can
the
kind of talk about, their bullpen struggles
yeah,
recently. It's just been,
yeah,
I don't know if I can really trust them in the postseason. And even to talk about, their starting rotation, I don't know if I really trust anyone other than Garrett Cole on their starting rotation right now.
yeah. So I'm just trying to remember. We have in some capacity we have the Orioles, the Guardians, the
The
Phillies,
Dodgers.
the Dodgers, and the Padres.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Padres like they scare me. But maybe it's gonna be different this year.
Maybe.
Because last year the Dodgers were like 16-4 against them in the regular season. And this was the first time the Padres won the regular season series in 10 years.
Hmm.
But oh, I mean, fire me up for I'd love to see the Padres and the Diamondbacks in that NL wild card. Like that, what's it? It's 3 games in the NL wild card. Like that's going
Yeah,
all
best of
three.
three.
There's no way that's not going all 3 games. Like that is just going to be an unreal series.
Dogfight. That'll be such a dogfight.
Yeah, and even to an extent, like the Brewers are I don't know. My prediction is that the Brewers are going to be that 3 seed just because the Dodgers and the Phillies have a 3 game up on them. Like the Brewers and the Mets or the Brewers and the Braves could
Braves.
just be that one. I think both NL wild card rounds or both series go the full three. Like you go pitcher for pitcher. And the Braves, like they also kind of scare me with that rotation, just with Chris Sale. Like they would be my honorable mention um as like a contender just because Freed, Sale, and Lopez or Schwellenbach. Like no one's talking about Spencer Schwellenbach, friend of the DraftKings. Um, he has been really, really good this year. Like you have options if you're the Braves, and then you have Raisel Iglesias, who's been lights out. Joe Jimenez has been lights out. Pierce Johnson, Dylan Lee, Aaron Bummer. Like I think they could also be a serious, serious threat. It's just, will their offense hold up?
Yeah. Uh, their entire starting rotation is looking like, especially for a wild card series where you have Chris Sale like manning the front. That's
Mhm.
gonna be such a hard game for anybody to win right now because he's likely gonna win the NL Cy Young at this point.
Yeah.
Uh, in his first year with Atlanta, just
First,
because,
first Cy Young too.
yeah, somebody who's finished second and third multiple times, but still just insane for him to, you know, age 35 and after a year last year and all the injury history, for
Hmm.
him to, leave Boston and win a Cy Young, that'd be insane his first year. But still, that rotation in that wild card series is going to be insane where you have Chris Sale starting it, and you'd probably have a choice between Reynaldo Lopez and Max Fried for game two and game three. Like, what an insane three-man, like three-headed dragon to have at the top of your rotation for a wild card series. Like, and even then, you still have, like you said, Schwellenbach and Charlie Morton as your fifth starter is not as bad as it seems. Like
Yeah, as a
40-year-old
number five,
Charlie,
I don't hate it, but I
yeah,
wouldn't put him in my top three.
but a number five starter,
Hmm.
age 40, only with a 4.24 ERA.
Yeah, I mean, oh, I
Still,
didn't know if you were. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
no,
cut you
no,
off, but like,
no, no.
yeah,
It's great.
yeah. I mean, you talk about Schwellenbach, who had like his ERA is inflated because of his like first handful of starts in the major leagues where he wasn't all that great. But since the month of July, I mean, he had a 2.08 ERA in July in 26 innings, a 3.07 in the month of August in 29 innings, and then put up a pretty solid stat line against the Phillies, keeping the Braves in it to an extent, going 5 2/3. But you just look at, I mean, his month of August, he didn't have a game below 7 strikeouts. 10, 7, 8, 9, 8. And then he had 11 against the Mets. Like, my God. He's only 24 years old. Only 24. Like, I hate the Braves. Go away.
They just find these guys, and even when they don't find guys to draft, they just trade for 35-year-old Chris Sale and turn him back into a Cy Young. It's it's insane that just these pitching staffs and these pitching coaches can just have a way with these players to turn them into something that like no one thought they could be. Like, I don't think coming into the year when they had made the deal for Chris Sale, I don't think anyone thought Chris Sale would just turn back into a perennial Cy Young candidate. Like, it's just they traded like Vaughn Grissom
I
and cash for Chris Sale right now.
God. Oh my God. And then they're gonna get Willie Adames. And then they're
Yeah.
gonna be healthy again. And then they're gonna win again. And then I'm gonna be sad.
They it's the way that things go,
The Dodgers just can't have anything nice, man. We just
they
can't.
had it's no one has it worse than Dodgers fans.
Yeah, I know. Forget the White Sox. Try being a Dodger fan, man.
But yeah, like that trade, if Vaughn Grissom doesn't turn out to be like anything at all,
Hmm.
like what an insanely bad trade that's gonna end up looking like, where Vaughn Grissom and cash for Chris Sale at 35 turning back into a Cy Young candidate.
Yeah, it's oh,
Very quickly before we wrap up this episode, I want to talk about a post made by Jay Kuda on Twitter, who talked about or who posted MLB drafts over the last 5 years and teams that had promoted those players to play in the big leagues since then. We're number one, we just talked about the Atlanta Braves have the most players called up, 10 from the first round and six from later rounds for 16
no,
total players.
first 5 rounds. First five.
First five rounds, and six from the later rounds for 16 total players. And like we talk about it, the Braves find these players and end up promoting them. And like we said, like Schwellenbach, they just end up pitching way better than anybody had really thought.
Yeah, I mean, you look at their team, Albies. I guess some of these guys weren't drafted, but so I don't know how that works because like Acuna Jr. was, or some of the guys were free agent signings. But I guess Schwellenbach is another one of these guys. Max Fried is another one of these guys. Michael Harris is another one. Oh, oh, so much pain. They're so good. They're kudos to that. And it's also like Alex Anthopoulos. Like we all knew like this guy might be one of the greatest GMs of all time. Like
Yeah.
everyone praises Friedman just because what he's done and whatever, and like all these other GMs in baseball of what they've done. But Alex Anthopoulos is like one of the best GMs of modern day.
Yeah, and even with these players that they draft, and they don't even necessarily keep them. Like Shea
Hmm.
Langoliers was drafted by Atlanta.
Yeah.
Joey Estes was drafted by Atlanta,
William
and
Contreras.
William Contreras, another one where it's they'll draft these players and trade them, and they traded Joey Estes and Shea Langoliers and Christian Pache, and they
For
got Matt
Olson.
Olson.
Hmm.
Like you take
Von
two of these,
Grisham for sale.
yeah, even if they don't necessarily need to use these players, they can draft them and they find a way to, make deals with them. Getting Matt Olson, an insane get for the Braves, who obviously he's had a down year this year, but last year hitting
Mhm.
54 home runs. Just these moves that get done, not even keeping these rookies or keeping these draft picks, but
Yeah.
still.
I mean, you look at their draft, it's just like their drafts are they're insane. Like Michael Harris was a third round pick back in 2019. Von Grisham was in that draft in the 11th round. Joey Estes was in the 16th round of the 2019 draft. Like this is a team that just they draft, but then they are also like their development is crazy. Like I don't get it. And Spencer Strider was in the fourth round of 2020, Bryce Elder in the fifth round of 2020. It's just like they're loaded and they're always going to stay loaded because none of these guys have massive contracts. So it's just like they don't have to worry about paying these guys. Schwellenbach was in the second round of 2021. You just go down the line and down the line. Even Justin Henry Malloy, who's now with the Tigers, like
Yeah.
they like if they don't make it with the Braves, they're finding them a home elsewhere and they're succeeding to a certain extent. But it's just, obviously with the MLB draft being so many rounds and just being so long, like out of the 20 rounds, if three of those guys can pan out, you'll take it because also half of them just don't even sign.
Yeah. It's just been like having these having these guys in their farm and their system, it just leads to so many different avenues for them to go out and, maybe I want to get a star reliever like a Joe Jimenez. Or not star reliever, but I want to get a good reliever in Joe Jimenez, and I'll trade Justin Henry Malloy.
Yeah.
Or I want to get Matt Olson. So let me just trade two of our picks from 2019 and oh, there we go. We got Matt Olson now. And like it's such an insane deal where they're just finding these guys that end up playing major league minutes or major league innings and for like they're just their scouting staff, their scouting department, insane. The way that they're able to find these guys.
Yeah, I think you also look at another team at the top of that list is the Seattle Mariners. And I mean, you look at their entire rotation outside of Luis Castillo, it's like it's basically all homegrown.
Yeah.
George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, Bryce Miller, Brian Wu. And then you look at the team with Julio Rodriguez leading it off as well. I mean, like this is a team that's legit. Cal Riley, another guy as well. It's just those two teams at the top, and then we could talk about your beloved Blue Jays that are
Yeah.
they're somewhere on the list. I can't find them, but if you can help me find them, that would be great.
Yeah, they're tied for last. Like I could count them all on a finger. You drafted four. There's been four players: Alek Manoah, Spencer Horwitz, Austin Martin, and Cam Eden. Two of them aren't even in the organization anymore. Um, yeah. But
Well,
yeah,
basically three of them aren't in the organization anymore.
true. But still, like Austin Martin, well, he hasn't been great for the Twins. Getting Jose Barrios for him is at least something.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how I'd be doing if my mental if the only guys we drafted from they're all from the 2019 draft and then Austin Martin's from 2020. Like
Hmm.
what an insane we haven't drafted like okay, Ricky Tiedemann, he got hurt. He was probably gonna be
Tommy
called up this
John.
year. Tommy John surgery. But it's just been like these other I pray and hope Arjun Namala
Dude,
ends up being something. Because
Blue Jay fans better hope because they're going to need a new shortstop soon.
yeah, or Alan Roden, who won minor league player of the month for AAA. Like
Hmm.
I hope these players become something. I'm praying, I'm begging, I'm praying. Because
Even
if
Trey
not,
is Savage. He's really good.
I'm hoping like whoever's in the farm system needs to be called up because right now all of our players are only from 2019 and the other one that was from 2020 isn't even on in the Blue Jays system right now. Like I'm begging and praying. Now we get international free agents. We get like Orelvis Martinez. We get
Hmm.
Bobby like Brandon Barriera, like,
Hmm.
but I'm just begging and praying. We just need to draft better, and hopefully Trey Savage is the start of uh a new regime in the front office where hopefully they're
Hmm.
making better decisions. But still, I'm just begging and praying.
Oh, hope for a prayer. Shoot
Yeah.
for the stars.
But anyways, that'll just about do it for this episode of Breaking News Bears. I once again want to thank my co-host Evan Davis for his insight, and I want to again thank you, the listener, for listening to this this episode. We'll see you all again next week. Thank you all for listening.